Hey guys, this is Tyler here with Socrates Investments. So I'm going to briefly discuss this incredible rise that we're seeing right now in silver. Anyone here who doesn't know, silver has been blowing many people's minds. I actually didn't really look at buying silver until recently. I wasn't ever really big into precious metals, gold, silver. I bought some gold back 2018. There was kind of an underlying reason. It wasn't so much based on investment purposes, but ironically, I ended up selling it like a month later. I was actually it's a long story, but I needed the cash. I'm just going to show you here briefly, like when we look at silver over the course of the past year, if we look since the beginning of 2025, I mean, it's had this like 100 and I think it's around 140% run. Unbelievable. This is why investments are really different than like swing day trading. For example, if we go back here, it wasn't until late 2000s that silver actually was making a decent move. Like even in the last 5 years, silver ranged from 2020 to in 2020 it was around $18 a year ago. Or if we go fast forward 3 years later, it was dollars. Didn't really move a lot. It wasn't really making this move until and this is compared to Bitcoin mining, so let's just take off the Bitcoin. It didn't really start moving until we hit like 2024, 25. Even in 24, early 24, you could have bought it at like $25, and now it's sitting at $72. I still believe that it's very undervalued. I think silver could definitely hit $1,000, $2,000 within the next few years. A lot of it really boils down to supply and demand. In the same way that crypto, when you look at crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, it took a while for momentum to kick in, and then it really kicked in. I see it just started absolutely making ridiculous moves on a weekly, monthly basis. Just imagine you can still buy whole ounces of silver less than $100. Think in 5 or 10 years, it could be at $4 or $5,000 like gold. Will it hit $100 next year? I think so. Will it hit 500? Not sure. A lot of that will depend on different factors. There has to be a lot of this FOMO, fear of missing out, that most definitely has to kick in, and people really have to start getting on the bandwagon and just screaming into this asset and just buying it up. One of the differences, though, with like Bitcoin, just like with stocks, the outstanding float of Bitcoin like similar to share float of the stock market is around 20 million, we'll say 20 million. So there's only 20 million Bitcoin. If you were to look at a stock, that would be like a small to small medium cap stock or small float stock, I should say. Anything that's 10 to 20 million is smaller. Anything below 10 or 5 million would be small, but 20 million is still small. Now, when you look at commodities, is there that small of a float to be had? It's hard to say completely, but that's one of the defining things about Bitcoin, why the value is so high. It's the same thing like in the stock market. Anytime you have a small supply, the price is just going to shoot up a lot faster when there's like this FOMO that kicks in. Now, another thing also, when let's look at gold here. Gold in the past 5 years has gone up about 2,000%. And if we went back to, like I said, when I bought gold back in 2018, it was like around, I'll show you guys. It was like around there, actually, a little later, but maybe around August. It's around $1,200. When gold hit like 2,000 up here, I thought it was getting pretty overextended. Or even if we go back, when gold back in 2020, when it got to like 18, it actually did hit 2000. I thought it was overextended, and go and behold, it consolidated and it just started going up crazy in the past 3 years. And obviously now we have at under 5,000. Gold could hit 10,000 this year or next year. You never know. But getting back here is like, I'm just going to show everyone here like an article, something else with silver that makes it really, that's gold, of course. Look at all the uses that we have with silver, like electronics, energy, medical, industrial. These are several hundred billion or even trillion dollar industries. Medical's a trillion plus industry on a world scale. There is so much usage with silver, and it's similar in the sense that Bitcoin had a lot of adoption with people that were in more clandestine industries, you could say, people that were like the Silk Road. Ross Ulbricht was running the Silk Road, which was this marketplace that was trafficking all these different illicit things like narcotics, a a bunch of things, mostly narcotics. That's where it really started gaining traction. Then it's obviously been utilized in all these other things. And same way with silver, there's all these different sectors where it really has vital use, like in computers and technology and all these medical instruments and within microchips and energy, solar, and consumer goods. There's so many different areas of adoption. That's why I still think it's very undervalued. I mean, $70 an ounce. This thing could be at like $7,000 an ounce within 5 or 10 years. We don't know. I mean, did people know gold was going to start moving like it did in the last 5 years? Probably not. And it's also speaks volume to like the dollar. When you look at like let's just look at the deflation of the dollar in the past 5, 10, 20 years. And this is really also the other part of this. Okay, so over the past decade, roughly, the US dollar purchasing power has, of course, it's declined with inflation. So let's look at it buys 25% less than it did 10 years ago. That's insane. And I tell this to people. This was in 2023, mind you. So like 2013. I remember when so my first job when I was out of college was working at UPS. I was thinking about this like a couple years ago. My salary was I got a promotion in my first year and I think my salary was like 21 an hour or maybe it was like 22. So let's just look up 22 an hour in 2015. This was equivalent to $30. I mean, who would have thought? Where's $22 compared to 10 years before in 2005? What was okay, so it would be equivalent to $36. So that would be so if you do the math here, I'm not going to run through this, but that would be like a 20% increase from 2005 to 2015 was like a 20% increase, which would average to about anywhere between $2. Yeah, we'll say yeah, it was like a few dollars or a few percent a year inflation, whereas 22 to 30 was like 45% increase. When you go back, like I had said, so compared 45% to like 20, 25%. And that's like I said, that's inflation effect. And that's why, like, even when you look at so let's just take gold again. Look at this. This is absolutely insane. Gold, you could buy gold for a few $100s in 2000. Even in 2005, you could buy it for about 400 an ounce. And then look at this. From '05, it ran up within 8 years, more or less, it ran up to about 1500 to 1800 an ounce. So that's why I said, look at silver. I mean, silver could really make a huge run in the next few years. We could see the exact same thing. Only I think it would go from like 70 and we could see a quadruple digit jump within a few years. So there's so much value there in having this. And another thing I want to show everyone here. So TradingView, if anyone doesn't know, this is an awesome site, stocks, crypto, commodities, etc. You can look up just about anything within the investment class. So let's just take the CFD for silver. This is just in 1 year. We had just say 30 and it's sitting at 72 late December. Now look at silver. Let's go back. We'll start with 5 years. Look at how little silver moved in this little pocket here. It was more or less, it stayed within a 20%, 20 to 25% range from 2020 until 2024. But like if we look at go back here, silver had this big look at what you could buy silver at. It was at around $3, under $3 in 1974 or early 70s. And then it had this humongous run up to around 40, and then it consolidated a couple decades. You could still buy silver. Look at this here. Around $5 an ounce, late 90s to early 2000s. And then it ran up to around 40. So like right here, I mean, this thing, sky's the limit. Like some people might say we're overextending. It may need some consolidation, but let's just take gold for example here. So like gold's just been insane. When you look at from 2000 to 50, then it hit 2500. That was a 1000% increase there, and that was just this past year or last year, 2024. Look at from before 1970. Look at where gold was at. You could buy it basically until like 2001, 2002 at around 250, and then it just made this humongous move. Likely you see the same with silver. Now, another thing to look at here is performance down here. 1 week, 13%, 1 month, 44%, 6 months, 96%, in 1 year, 142%. What's interesting though, look at this. 2025, it had a 143 increase. 2020 was the second most in 5 years, 48. And then these other years, it was quite a bit lower apart from last year. That is extraordinary right there. And I think this is where you see, is it overextending the price, or is the value, the price that we're paying now actually catching up? The real value of silver is now actually getting baked in retroactively. That's my opinion. Just take gold, for example. 69% this year, which is quite substantial. 2024 was 27 and 2020 was 25%. When you compare it, like it's been a little more consistent, where silver obviously is this crazy high. Where does everyone see silver going this year? Give me your feedback below. Do you guys see this thing going up more, or do you see it consolidating some and then continuing, or do you just see that it's kind of hit its peak? Thank you guys and have a great Christmas.